Welcome to Jesus On, a look at today's issues from an eternal perspective. Pastor Zack and Pastor John will be giving us biblical insight into some of the problems the world faces today. Sit back and listen as we hear Jesus on the problems you're dealing with right now.
Hey, welcome to the Jesus On podcast. My name is Zack.
And I'm Amy.
And we are talking about Jesus on different emotions. And today we want to talk about, I think, one of the most difficult emotions. We spent a lot of time talking about this, and there's so much here. Jesus on anger.
That's right, Jesus on anger. And if any of you kind of flinched, that's understandable because a lot of our experiences with anger aren't great. But we want to stop and think, can anger ever be a good thing, a positive thing? And when we look at scripture, the answer is yes. Sometimes anger can be a good thing, a very good thing even. And one of the best stories to look at when we want to see how Jesus dealt with anger and what it looked like for Jesus to be angry is when he went to the temple and cleared it out. And you might be having images in your head right now of just tables flipping all over the place and whips and coins flying and animals and all kinds of things. It was quite the scene, I'm sure. But let's take a look at it, at what Jesus was doing there and why. And yes, he was angry. He says, "It is written," he said to them, "My house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers." He was upset when he did that. But what's really cool is in this glimpse of Jesus being angry, we find out that something's very important to him that might have been harder to see otherwise. He's showing that, again, part of it's very plain. My house is to be a house of prayer. The temple was supposed to be a sacred place, and it wasn't being treated like that. But what comes next shows something that he really cares about. It says in verse 14 of chapter 21 in Matthew, "The blind and the lame came to him at the temple, and he healed them." Then the chief priests come and they say other things. And then at the end it says, "Do you hear what these children are saying?" They asked him. He said, "Yes, but have you ever read, 'From the lips of children and infants you have ordained praise'?" So this clearing of the temple made space in this sacred place and around Jesus for the marginalized to come and have access to him. So in this, yes, we see that Jesus cares about the temple and this place and how it is treated. But we also see that Jesus cares for people so deeply that he wants everyone to have access, no matter age, no matter ability, no matter status. He wants them to have access to him, and he's willing to flip a few tables to make that happen. And his anger shows us that. So we get to learn something really good about that. And sometimes you might see that and learn that from people around you. But Zack, what are the dangers of anger? Where do we see that?
Dangers of anger. I love what you said, the good side. And I think we need to really take hold of that anger can lead to justice.
Yes.
And yes, that's good. Let's not miss that. But let's talk about the dangers of anger. Oh, there's so many. I think of what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, where he said, "You have heard that it was said to those of old, 'You shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment.' But I say to you that anyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says, 'You fool,' will be liable to the hell of fire." How does that sound to you? My goodness.
Intense.
I think Jesus says this because there is so much danger in our anger. And here's the danger. Our anger will produce a a reaction that is 10 times, maybe 100 times worse than it deserves. Here's what I mean by that is we've heard stories from the news of someone who gets cut off in traffic and they're super angry and they pull out a gun and they shoot them. Or someone takes a parking spot, or they're fighting over something in the mall and it goes to fists and someone ends up in the hospital. And what happens? Their anger produced in them a kind of action and a kind of reaction that was 100 times worse than what the reaction should have been. It multiplies it. And we talked about this. The danger of anger is that what our anger typically brings is what?
More anger.
More anger.
And then you might have people gather around you and say, I'm going to be angry about that too. And then that anger grows even more. And it just is a cycle that continues.
And another aspect about it that is very dangerous is anger attracts anger. You'd mentioned this before. You were referencing Facebook. You said this a while ago. Do you remember what you said to me? Will you say it because you'll say it more clear?
Some of you might remember that a couple of years ago, a whistleblower, one of the Facebook employees, came out and said there are some things not going well at Facebook. And one of the things that came out as not going well was that stories or posts that you would see first are the ones that were getting reactions. And the reactions that they were promoting the most were when people reacted angrily, either with that little angry face or with angry comments. And those were getting shoved to the top. And so those were the ones that were being spread faster and farther than any other posts going on Facebook. And some of you might be gone from Facebook because of that, because it can be a very angry place.
And it's so easy to jump on that train.
Yeah.
I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, that the angry emoji is the most used emoji on Facebook. Oh gosh. I mean, I'm not trying to get into the political conversation here. My take on the political scene, both in elections and in just what people would say are political issues, usually those are driven by anger.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just anger promoting anger. And so I think that's the danger of anger, that anger doesn't bring joy. Anger doesn't bring forgiveness. Anger doesn't bring resolution. Anger just produces more anger, which produces more anger. It is like a wildfire. And it's so utterly dangerous. And we were talking about this. My worst moments as a dad,
and mine as a mom,
are when I get angry.
Yes.
And nobody can make me more angry than my children. Oh gosh, I'm confessing my sin right now.
And it
Amy,
can happen very fast.
Does it happen to moms too?
I will confess right along with you. It happens fast and often has to end with asking for forgiveness.
Yeah. And how many marriages have been ruined by anger? How many parent-child relationships get ruined by anger? Just a response that comes from anger. So that's the danger. Anger is a big emotion. It's a huge emotion that we have, and it's so utterly dangerous. So I think we've talked enough about how dangerous it is, though it feels like we haven't, but we'll just leave it at that. It is extremely dangerous. And maybe ponder, how's anger been dangerous in your life?
Yes.
How has anger been dangerous? What has anger done to you? I think that's probably a little bit easier to answer than what your anger's been done, what it's done to other people.
Yeah.
So maybe start with how it's affected you. But let's move on and let's talk about, what do we do with this massive emotion of anger? What do we do with it? What does Jesus, looking at the life of Jesus, what does he do that we can learn from?
Right. Because as you said before, when Jesus was angry, it led to justice. And we see different examples of that in the Bible where God's anger, Jesus' anger, leads to justice for people who need it. And so we can see with Jesus, when he came to the temple, this was towards the end of his ministry. He is God. He knew what was going on in the temple. So when he entered the temple and saw that this was happening, it wasn't a surprise to him. He had had time to think about it and to know what God would have him do about it. His timing was planned for that moment and wasn't out of some gut reaction to just smash things because he felt angry. And I don't know about you, I don't know very many children or even other people who would want to draw near to someone or praise someone who had just shown a scary, uncontrolled amount of anger. So whatever it looked like for Jesus to do this was somehow inviting enough that people could draw near to him. He had good timing, especially. We can definitely see that.
Yeah.
His timing was perfect for when that needed to happen.
It was reflective.
Yes.
It was reflective.
Yes. He didn't do it in the moment. He knew what he was going to do because he'd had the time to think about it.
Yeah, I want to underline that because I think that's the first step of what we do with our anger is we let it sit.
Yes.
One of my kids punched one of my other kids. This was like 2 days ago. I lost it. And I said to him, "You're going to be doing chores the whole day." It was still morning time. And oh my goodness. And you know what happened? 1 minute went by and I realized my anger kind of came down and I just thought to myself, well, that was stupid. That is completely unfair to my child.
And that happened in a minute. If you could just take that minute beforehand, and then your anger level can come down. And the Bible tells us to do that. It says it in Psalms, and it says it later in Ephesians. In your anger, do not sin. It says then, when you're on your bed, so like that night when you go to bed, or you in that moment that you had right there, search your hearts and be silent.
Be silent.
And be silent. When you are angry, God's calling you to just take a beat.
Yeah.
And decide what is going to happen next.
When we make decisions out of our anger, 99.9% of the time, they are the wrong decisions.
Yes.
The wrong decisions. So the first thing that we do is we just take a moment, take a breath, take a minute or longer, and let the anger settle. Let the roaring boil take off the heat. Let the boil come down. So it's not boiling.
It might help to remember Jesus took his time.
Yeah,
in expressing his anger too.
Absolutely. I think the other thing that we can learn from Jesus is he names it.
Yes.
This scene would have been way different if Jesus flipped over the tables, did all of that, and then walked out. People have been like, what is wrong with him? Jesus didn't do that. What did he do? He looked around and he named why he was angry. And what does he say to them? He says, "My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of robbers." And he names why he's angry after he had taken the time of discerning, okay, what's the right response here?
Yes.
And in his case, it was flipping over tables, which I don't know if that gives us the permission to. I'm just imagining just me flipping over this table right now, how epic that would be. But I think that there's power, so much power in our anger when we get cut off by a car, when one of our kids disobeys us or hits their sibling or whatever it is, and we feel the boiling anger come out. If we can just stop and go, why am I angry?
Why is such a powerful question.
And one of the things I've noticed is a lot of times the reason why I'm angry is not necessarily at the situation. It's because I'm tired, and then this just took it over the top. Or it's because I'm fearful of something. I mean, the why behind it is super nuanced, but also very, I think, really, really significant. And I think we need to do something with that why. I think that we should ask why.
Yes.
And whatever the answer is, we need to do something about it.
That's right. But we shouldn't just pick on our own what to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's because you're tired or you're afraid, maybe it's genuinely an injustice. Whatever it is, the reason being selfish or noble, we should look at God and ask him, okay, God, I'm angry. This is why I'm angry. And then ask him, what should I do with this? Because his ways are much better than our ways. Sometimes it might mean, okay, there is an injustice. I want you to do this. Maybe you're going to be flipping over a table. I don't know.
Yeah.
But maybe it's going to be, you need to trust me with whatever it is you're afraid of. Fill in the blank. Maybe it is just genuinely, you need to get more sleep tonight.
Yeah.
You haven't been resting well, and it's starting to affect how you are interacting with the people around you. It's going to be there are so many different scenarios.
It could be trauma. It could be a trauma that you had when you were a kid or something.
That's right.
And the reason why you're angry is because you need to go to counseling for a couple of years and work through some stuff that really happened to you.
Because again, anger breeds anger, and God does not call us to live that way and to stay there. And we need to be ready with soft hearts to get more rest, to seek out counseling, to act in a way that he wants us to.
The last thing I'll say, and it's part of our application here, is in every single emotion we have, and especially in anger, what we need to do is we need to go to God.
Yes.
We need to go to Jesus Christ and let him speak into and help us walk through these emotions, but especially anger. My word of application would be this. What gets you angry? I know what mine is. So know your trigger points. My trigger points have to do with parenting. And the fact that I know that, I just gave an example of how I blew it. It happens. But I could also give you other examples of where something did happen and I knew, okay, this gets me angry, and I could slow down. And so I think, what makes you angry, so you can prepare for that and then slow down and ask why. Any other word of application you might give, Amy?
I would just encourage you. You might be listening to us and saying, "Oh, I'm not really an angry person," or "I don't know what gets me angry." Anger is important enough. In your anger, do not sin. Anger being equated with murder. It's important enough that you should ask someone. Ask a spouse, ask a friend, ask your child, ask a parent, somebody close to you. Hey, when do you notice me getting angry? Or do you notice me? And then start to look for it. Like you said, take it to God. It's an invitation.
Yeah.
It's not, he's not going to meet you there with scolding for being angry.
Yeah.
He wants to hear what matters to you and give you guidance on how to move forward.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining. We hope this blesses you, encourages you. Would you do us a favor? Would you please leave a rating and review? This helps this podcast get out to more people, to encourage more people. And we hope to have you join us next time. Thanks for listening in.